The acceptance letter from Grandview University arrived on a Tuesday, and it threw the entire family into a state of stunned disbelief. Ethan had envisioned only two possible outcomes after his SATs. Either he'd get into his dream school, or he'd end up at one of the local state colleges. Every step of his life had been unremarkable, predictable. He never imagined that two seismic events would conspire to derail his future just before the start of the fall semester. Caleb's sudden, unnerving breakdown was the first. This letter was the second. His mother, Sarah, took time off from the plant, dragging Ethan from one administrative office to another. His aunt, Frances, even used her vacation days to help. They exhausted every possible avenue. Ethan's name was indeed on the GU admissions list, his social security number a perfect match, but the ID photo was of another boy entirely. Ethan knew him, so did Sarah. It was the son of Mr. Henderson, the plant's formidable vice president. The path from application to acceptance was a labyrinth of paperwork and unseen handshakes. It wasn't as simple as swapping a photograph. It was Ethan's first brutal encounter with the world's opaque and crushing complexity. Sarah had marched Ethan over to the Hendersons' house for a confrontation. Mr. Henderson flatly denied any wrongdoing, instead launching into a long, cloying monologue about favors and gratitude. The company housing they'd been granted years ago, the survivor benefits they received each month after Ethan's father passed, even Frances's secure position on the factory line. Ethan understood the subtext clearly. It wasn't a reminder to be thankful. It was a threat. In the time they spent being stonewalled, misled, and shuttled between indifferent bureaucrats, other students who had applied to GU began receiving their acceptance packages. The admissions office had finalized everything. To this day, they never found out exactly how the Hendersons had orchestrated it. The office only cared about the paperwork, and the paperwork was flawless. The person was wrong, but the file was perfect. Ethan was still Ethan, but his life had been stolen. His official records had already been transferred to the local college listed on the fraudulent letter. Sarah took an overnight bus, fighting tooth and nail until the registrar's office reluctantly agreed to release his file. But when they finally held the returned manila folder in their hands at the state records office, they discovered the test scores inside weren't even his. The name was Ethan's, but the SAT score was a dismal 1140. Someone had created a counterfeit file, a perfect duplicate designed to saddle him with a life that wasn't his. The knowledge that he had been cheated changed nothing. Every path they took seemed to lead back to the same dead end: surrender. Leaving the Hendersons' house, Ethan and Sarah walked home in silence. He noticed the new strands of silver at his mother's temples and told her quietly not to stress anymore. He insisted they could stop fighting. He had taken the tests once. He could do it again next year. But Sarah's jaw was tight with a resolve he hadn't seen before. She refused to accept this fate. She forced a smile, murmuring that there were always options: lawsuits, reporters, protests. Ethan said nothing. The cost of such a fight was too high, and the chance of success was zero. The past few weeks had been an education in the harsh realities of their world. They were an ordinary family with no connections, no influence. What could they possibly pit against a man like Henderson? His mother knew this better than he did, but her pride wouldn't let her admit defeat. He knew it too. If it happened this year, what was to stop it from happening again? With his real file in someone else's hands, would his forged one even allow him to enroll anywhere next year? Maybe college was just not in the cards for him. The initial shock and despair had faded into a strange calm. He had always been this way. Even for things he desperately wanted, he never clung too tightly. If he got it, great. If not, he could accept it. Some might call it being easygoing. A harsher critic would call it weakness. As they reached their front gate, they saw Caleb waiting for them. He hadn't been around for days and looked worn out. He approached Sarah, asking if she had Ethan's file and all the paperwork. She confirmed she did, a note of confusion in her voice. Caleb's lips thinned as he spoke in a low tone, suggesting that if she was done fighting, she should take everything to the admissions office. He handed her a sealed envelope and a business card. He instructed her to find the person named on the card, tell them she was dropping something off, and leave without another word. After disappearing for nearly a week, his sudden return with such a concrete, confident plan was jarring. Sarah seemed to grasp the implication immediately, her voice trembling as she asked if this would really work. Caleb's expression held no joy, only a shadow of resignation. He explained it was the only way. Ethan's original file was gone for good, and his choice of major would be left to the university's discretion. He asked if she could live with that outcome, adding that if she couldn't, they could wait, but he couldn't promise any other solution. Sarah stood frozen for a long moment before turning to Ethan, her voice shaking. "Ethan, what do you think?" Ethan looked at Caleb and understood everything. They had spent weeks running in circles. His family had cried, raged, pleaded. His normally gentle mother had stood in the Hendersons' living room, hair disheveled and eyes red, stripped of her dignity. All their desperate efforts amounted to less than this single business card in Caleb's hand. He couldn't tell if this was a stroke of luck or a cruel joke. He knew he should be ecstatic, relieved, but he couldn't smile. A strange sense of disappointment settled in his stomach. When the simple world of a teenager collides with the vast, complex machinery of reality, the things he once believed in are revealed as naive and childish. For a fleeting moment, Ethan wanted to say, "Forget it." But seeing the desperate hope on his mother's face, he lowered his head and nodded. Sarah finally wiped her eyes, her words tumbling out in a rush of gratitude. She didn't know how she could ever thank her. She clutched the envelope and card inside her document bag and hurried away. Caleb quickly followed, hailing a taxi for her. Only after the car disappeared did Ethan walk over to Caleb, murmuring that he should have gone with her. Caleb's reply was curt. Ethan's presence wouldn't have made a difference. The letter was all that mattered. Then, as if realizing something, he fell silent. Ethan stood there quietly. Caleb seemed even more uncertain than he was. He apologized, his voice lacking its usual confidence, explaining that the major would probably be a poor fit. His mom. "No," Ethan interrupted softly. "Thank her for me." He forced a smile, trying to push down the complicated swirl of emotions. He knew things had changed for Caleb after his grandfather's death. Caleb's mother was a distant woman, even to those close to her, let alone to outsiders. If this had been an easy favor, Caleb wouldn't have been gone for so long. For whatever reason, Caleb had clearly moved heaven and earth for him. A pang of guilt twisted inside Ethan. He remembered telling Caleb once that he'd be happy with any major, as long as he got into G.U. He met Caleb's gaze and said with sincerity, "Caleb, thank you. Really." Caleb watched him, searching his face, and then seemed to relax, realizing Ethan meant it. The tension in his shoulders eased, but the look in his eyes intensified. He told Ethan he didn't need to thank him. Ethan looked down, unable to meet that gaze. Before, their friendship had been an effortless give and take. Ethan was good to Caleb, and Caleb was good to Ethan. It was the natural order of things. But this was different. This was a debt he felt he could never repay. The new acceptance letter arrived in less than a week. He was admitted to the College of Foreign Languages. A STEM student shunted into a liberal arts program at an engineering school was far from ideal, but it was a miracle. The incident completely changed his grandmother's opinion of Caleb. She now warmly invited him over for dinner constantly. In the next breath, she'd scold Ethan for being ungrateful, wondering why he wasn't spending more time with the friend who had saved his future. Ethan didn't know how to explain it. Both he and Caleb were now deliberately avoiding the topic that hung between them, a question neither knew how to touch. He suspected Caleb was just as lost as he was, trying to figure out how they were supposed to act around each other now. The admissions crisis had temporarily overshadowed Caleb's intense confession, but Ethan knew it hadn't vanished. Life was rarely simple. Ethan considered himself lucky, but he was beginning to realize that much of his luck had been a gift from Caleb. If he could, he would wish for Caleb to have everything he wanted. But the one thing Caleb wanted was the one thing that felt impossible. Even now, the memory of Caleb pinning him down, the look in his eyes, filled him with a confusing mix of fear and sorrow. How could Caleb be so kind to him one moment and so terrifying the next? Perhaps Caleb didn't understand it himself. But it wasn't all Caleb's fault. With a sigh, Ethan admitted to himself that he was at fault too. That, combined with a debt he could never repay, meant the knot between them might never be untangled. Before he could find an answer, it was time to report to campus. With a heart full of unresolved questions, he walked through the university gates alongside Caleb. His start at Grandview was quiet, shadowed by the way he'd gotten in. No matter his actual test scores, his spot hadn't been earned through conventional means. During orientation week, his name wasn't on the initial rosters, leading to minor hassles with getting his ID and dorm assignment. He could feel the professors looking at him with a strange mix of pity and suspicion. They clearly knew something. When other freshmen chatted about their SAT scores, Ethan would either fall silent or slip away. At the convocation ceremony, he saw Henderson's son from a distance. The boy was dressed impeccably, blending in perfectly with the other students. He would have a bright future. The students with similar scores who weren't sitting in that auditorium would now be on entirely different life paths. But there wasn't much time for self-pity. The freshmen were herded like cattle onto green military-style trucks and driven to a remote training facility in the mountains. Life at GU began with a grueling 2-month wilderness orientation. The world shrank to a sea of unfamiliar faces in camouflage. The daily training regimen was physically punishing, far more intense than anything his older cousins had described from their own college experiences. The barrack-style cabins housed 20 students each. Bunkmates quickly bonded over shared misery, and Ethan learned that some schools had year-long programs like this. 2 months suddenly seemed manageable. Manageable but brutal. After a week, Ethan felt like he'd been stripped of a layer of skin. Standing at attention under the late summer sun, his thick, curly hair trapping the heat, he felt a wave of dizziness. He thought that anyone who complained about the difficulty of studying had never experienced real hardship. The instructors, all former military, were relentless. One of them stopped in front of him, his gaze fixed on Ethan's hair. He barked out a question about why a kid his age would get a perm. Ethan, startled, explained that it was natural. The instructor roared that he needed to shout, "Sir." "Yes, sir." Before speaking, Ethan complied, his voice cracking. "Sir, yes, sir. My hair is naturally curly, sir." The force of the shout sent him into a coughing fit. The instructor's final command was an order to have it cut by the next day. "Sir, yes, sir," Ethan managed to rasp. As the instructor moved on, chaos erupted across the training field. Shouts echoed from other platoons. Ethan heard a female student being berated, the instructor yelling that being a girl was no excuse. Everyone was to be held to the same standard. He sympathized, guessing she was on her period. What terrible timing. From another corner of the field, the sound of marching drills began. An instructor bellowed at a student to lift his feet, asking if they were broken. Another was singled out for wearing a long-sleeved shirt under his uniform, accused of seeking attention. Then, a voice cut through the noise, sharp with pain. "Sir, my boots have worn my feet raw. Sir, I have a severe sunburn." Ethan's blood ran cold. He would know that voice anywhere. It was Caleb's. In over a week at the camp, he had barely seen him. With so many students and staggered schedules, it was nearly impossible to find anyone. Dressed in identical fatigues and baked dark by the sun, everyone looked the same. He thought he'd spotted Caleb twice, only to be mistaken. Now, glancing sideways, he saw his instructor talking to another. Seizing the opportunity, Ethan quickly looked back across the field. He could just make out a tall figure rolling up the sleeves of his camo shirt, his arms a blotchy red. The instructor's voice carried across the distance. "You have a problem? Overcome it." A sharp voice nearby snapped, "What are you looking at?" Ethan whipped his head forward, his heart pounding. Luckily, the instructor was yelling at someone else. He let out a quiet breath, a fresh wave of worry washing over him. Caleb must be miserable. The thought of Caleb brought a cascade of other thoughts, and a familiar sadness settled over him. Finally, the sun began to set, and their platoon was the first to be dismissed for dinner. Ethan quickly ate his food and scanned the crowded mess hall, but there was no sign of Caleb. Their platoons were on different schedules. That evening, for the first time, there was no mandatory film screening. The bunkhouse was stuffy despite the screened windows, a small fan whirring overhead. His bunkmates chatted about their homes, their exhaustion, and their excitement about the upcoming rifle training. When an instructor announced it was time for showers, a cheer went up, and everyone scrambled for their toiletries. Ethan was halfway to the showers when he remembered something. He hurried back to the cabin, quietly retrieved a tube of ointment from his duffel bag, and slipped it into his pocket. With no scheduled activities tonight, he'd have time to find Caleb and give it to him. The communal shower was a chaos of steam and bodies. He washed quickly and stepped out into the cool night air. He crossed the main square, heading for the barracks assigned to the engineering students. He asked everyone he passed if they knew which cabin Caleb was in, but no one did. He was stopped at the entrance by an instructor who sternly informed him that visiting other cabins was forbidden and sent him away. Frustrated, Ethan stared up at the lit windows. After a moment's hesitation, he cupped his hands around his mouth and took a deep breath to shout Caleb's name. Before he could make a sound, a large, cold hand clamped over his mouth from behind. A damp, chilled body pressed against his back. Ethan flinched in shock, dropping his wash basin with a clatter. Caleb released him and knelt to pick up the scattered soap and shampoo, his voice cool and unreadable. "Finally decided to look for me?" Ethan's heart was still racing from the scare. He was sure Caleb's fingers had deliberately brushed against his lips. He took the basin, stepping back cautiously. He stammered that he had just come to bring him some ointment. Caleb took the tube, studied him for a moment, and then a corner of his mouth lifted. He told Ethan to apply it for him, claiming he couldn't reach his own back. Before, Ethan would have agreed without a second thought. Now he hesitated. The small smile on Caleb's face faded. "You won't even do that for me anymore?" Ethan sighed and took the ointment back, explaining that he couldn't get into Caleb's cabin. Caleb simply said they could do it outside, gesturing toward a low stone ledge nearby. He walked over, and Ethan had no choice but to follow. At the ledge, Caleb set down his things and pulled off his undershirt. In the dim yellow light from the barracks, Ethan could see the angry red patches of sunburn covering his back and shoulders. He felt a pang of worry as he applied the cool cream, asking how he had gotten so burned. He suggested Caleb talk to a counselor, maybe get permission to wear a long-sleeved shirt for outdoor drills. He asked if it hurt badly, mentioning he had some aspirin, and then asked about his feet. Caleb stared out at the students milling around the square. After a long silence, he spoke. His words disconnected from Ethan's questions. If I hadn't gotten into that academic competition, this would have been my life all the time. He suddenly turned. Did the instructor tell you to cut your hair? Ethan blinked, recalling the order. Yeah. How did you know? Caleb didn't answer, simply stating, I'll do it. He told Ethan to wait and disappeared into his cabin, shirtless. He returned moments later with a pair of scissors. Ethan was hit with a memory of a disastrous childhood haircut and asked with a helpless sigh if Caleb actually knew what he was doing. Caleb's response was matter-of-fact. It would be better than Ethan doing it himself, and there were no barbershops here. Ethan supposed he was right and resigned himself to his fate. This time, Caleb was meticulous. He carefully snipped away at Ethan's curls, lock by lock. When he was finished, a small pile of dark hair lay on the stone ledge. Ethan turned just in time to see Caleb take a small lock of his own, carefully bind it with a rubber band, and slip it into his pocket. A night breeze swept through, scattering the rest of the hair into the darkness. It was such a strange gesture, but for some reason, Ethan felt a sting behind his eyes. He wanted to say something, to make a joke to dispel the awkwardness, but the words wouldn't come. Caleb explained simply that he was keeping it, something to tug on when he got annoyed. Ethan managed a weak response, saying Caleb could just tug on his actual hair. He wouldn't mind. That's not a given, Caleb murmured, more to himself than to Ethan. People change. What if one day you don't want me to? His voice held a trace of bitterness. It's not like you haven't changed already. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. I know you're blaming me. I'm not, Caleb interrupted, his tone softening. I told you I don't blame you. You just have to give me some time, right? The gentleness in his voice felt false, and Ethan knew none of it was true. But Caleb cut him off again, changing the subject. He'd heard there was a long-distance hike tomorrow. Just then, someone called Caleb's name from across the square, yelling that the PX had a new shipment. Ethan asked what was so important. Caleb pulled his shirt back on, grabbing Ethan's arm. Something to keep our feet from falling apart, he said, pulling him along. Let's go. Ethan had been at the camp for 2 weeks and hadn't known there was a post exchange. It was a small general store that sold daily necessities and offered photo and tailoring services. When they arrived, the place was packed. A crowd of boys was clustered around one aisle, laughing and blushing as they each grabbed packages of what looked like tissues. Caleb pushed through the crowd, grabbed 2 packs himself, and got in line. Ethan took one and realized they were sanitary pads. His aunt sometimes sent him to the pharmacy to buy them for her. They were surprisingly expensive. He felt a little uneasy, whispering to Caleb that using them as shoe insoles didn't seem right. Caleb just frowned, complaining that his feet were completely blistered. Ethan offered to go back for gauze and medicine, but Caleb just muttered, "It hurts." In that moment, he sounded exactly like the Caleb of old. Ethan felt a sliver of their former ease return. He offered to buy 2 pairs of thick cotton socks instead. He left the line and was trying to decide which pair to get when an argument broke out on the other side of the aisle. A group of girls had arrived to buy pads, only to find the shelf empty. A girl with a round face demanded to know why the owner had sold them all to the boys. A boy with acne-scarred cheeks retorted that they had paid for them. The girl's face flushed with anger. She pointed out that they were feminine hygiene products and insisted the owner shouldn't have sold them to the boys. Another boy jeered that it was first come, first served. The girl looked close to tears. Then, a clear, steady voice cut through the noise. "You're using them as insoles. We need them. It's like someone having a bleeding wound and someone else using bandages to polish their shoes." The voice belonged to a petite girl Ethan recognized. "Besides, you only need one pad per boot. You can open your packs and sell the rest to the girls." Some of the boys, shamed, put their packages back. Ethan walked over with the socks and saw that the speaker was Chloe, a girl from his orientation group. He awkwardly tugged on Caleb's sleeve, whispering that 2 pads would be enough for him. Caleb ignored him. He just gave Chloe a gentlemanly smile and pressed both of his packages into her hands. Chloe looked flustered, telling them they could each take 2. But Ethan, his face burning, declined, saying they could just cut up a towel. He held up the socks he'd bought. They left the PX. As they collected their things from the stone ledge, Caleb, who had been silent the whole walk back, finally spoke. "Then remember to cut a towel for me." Ethan smiled. "I will." He pushed both pairs of thick socks into Caleb's hands. Caleb stared at them for a moment, then sighed in resignation. "You?" He looked up, his gaze lingering on Ethan's face, then reached out and brushed a thumb against his cheek. The bugle call for lights out sounded just then. "I have to go," Ethan said, grabbing his basin and hurrying away. He was almost back at his cabin when he glanced over his shoulder. Caleb was still standing there in the darkness, a silent, unmoving figure. Ethan slept poorly that night. The emergency assembly whistle blew before dawn. Thanks to his preparations the night before, he wasn't as frantic as the others. He was one of the first ones out on the square and saw Caleb immediately. He was standing on the stone ledge, impossible to miss. Ethan ran over and quickly pressed the towel insoles he had cut into Caleb's hands. Before they could exchange a word, an instructor yelled at Caleb to get down. The square descended into chaos. Ethan had to push through the crowd to find his platoon. After being issued gear and packs, the hike began. Ethan lost track of time. They walked and sometimes they ran. The sky remained a stubborn, uniform gray. It wasn't until their first rest stop that he realized it was an overcast day. That was good. At least Caleb wouldn't get sunburned again. The first few miles were almost pleasant. But as they pushed on, the novelty wore off. The weight of their packs grew heavier, and the drills, like leopard crawling through mud, drained their energy. The path began to climb into the mountains. Students started to fall behind. Then, the rain began, a steady, chilling drizzle. There was nowhere to take shelter. The instructors urged them forward. A wet dirt path would soon turn to a river of mud. The column of students stretched out of sight in both directions. Ethan trudged on, his pack digging into his shoulders, daydreaming about the hot meal they might get at the end of this ordeal. He craved stew. The pace slowed to a crawl. When they reached the top of a small hill, the entire column halted. Below them was a fast-flowing creek, swollen by the rain. The stepping stones were slick and treacherous. The instructors called for male students who could swim to volunteer to stand in the water and help the others cross. Ethan raised his hand. The water was shockingly cold, reaching his waist. He and the other volunteers formed a human chain, bracing themselves against the current and offering a steadying hand to those crossing on the stones. More than once, someone slipped, and they had to haul them out of the water. By the time his group was across, Ethan was shivering uncontrollably, chilled to the bone. As he started to look for the classmate who had carried his pack, he saw a small, thin girl just ahead of him collapse without a sound. Everyone rushed to her side. Ethan checked her pulse. It was weak but steady. He saw the blood on her pants and understood. The cold, the rain, the exertion. It had all been too much for her. On an impulse he didn't understand, he offered to carry her. The standard pack weighed about 30 pounds, which was manageable. But a person, even a small one, was a different story. After a few hundred yards, regret began to set in. But he had given his word. He plodded onward, falling further and further behind his platoon. But he wasn't alone. Other students were also helping their struggling classmates. And the weight on his back provided some warmth against the cold. He focused on the thought of food, one muddy step at a time. When he finally stumbled into the designated rest area, he nearly collapsed with the girl still on his back. Instructors and students rushed to help. One of them looked at him, his voice a low rumble. "Foreign languages, right? What's your name?" "Ethan." The instructor carried the girl away. Ethan wanted to lie down right there on the wet ground, but he remembered his mother's about not stopping abruptly after intense exercise. He forced himself to take a few steps, but his legs felt like jelly. Suddenly, an arm wrapped around his, holding him steady. He looked up into Caleb's face, which was drawn into a severe scowl. The corners of Caleb's mouth, usually turned up in a slight smile, were now angled sharply downward. The sight was so unexpected that Ethan, delirious with exhaustion, let out a small laugh. Caleb's grim face showed a flicker of confusion. "What's so funny?" he demanded. "Are you an idiot?" Ethan shook his head, suppressing another laugh. He was so weak he would have crumpled to the ground without Caleb's support. Caleb took a deep breath, his voice low and tight with anger. He said he had been at the front of the column when he heard rumors that someone had been swept away by the creek, and then that the instructors were asking for swimmers. He glanced at Ethan's soaked pants, his voice seething. "Why do you always have to be the hero? Were all the other guys in your platoon dead?" Ethan, limp and dazed, let Caleb guide him toward the temporary camp. "No," he mumbled. "I was there." "Keep your voice down." Caleb fell silent. He led Ethan to the area where the foreign languages students were gathered. Tents had been pitched, and a fire roared under a makeshift tarp. In the distance, the faint outline of a village was visible through the rain. A classmate offered Ethan a dry jacket. The student who had carried his pack returned it with a friendly smile. Someone else handed him a canteen of hot water. He heard someone say the cooks had bought a lamb from a local farmer and there would be stew later. The news of stew cheered him immensely. He turned to share the good news with Caleb, but he was gone. Ethan changed out of his wet clothes and huddled by the fire. The exertion had caught up to him, and a wave of nausea rolled through his stomach. When a classmate brought him a plate of rice and beans, the sight of it made him feel sick. He politely refused and retreated into a tent, lying down on his sleeping bag. Sometime later, a blanket was draped over him. He blearily opened his eyes. Caleb was there, setting a bowl down beside him. It was a bowl of steaming stew. Caleb helped him sit up and held a water bottle to his lips. He told Ethan that if he felt sick, he needed to say so. There were support vehicles, and it was no big deal to drop out. Ethan shook his head, his voice weak. "I'm fine." "You look fine?" Caleb snapped. Ethan flinched, and the water bottle slipped from his grasp. Caleb caught it deftly. "You're just so capable, aren't you?" His voice was laced with sarcasm. "With so many people here, one more or one less makes no difference." Why did you have to be the one to go into the water? Ethan defended himself weakly, saying it wasn't just him, and that someone had to ensure the others were safe. Besides, the instructors had asked for swimmers and he was a good swimmer. Caleb's retort was sharp, accusing him of never thinking about himself first. He demanded to know when Ethan would learn to put himself first. Ethan tried to argue that he did think of himself, but Caleb cut him off, his anger shifting targets. And carrying that girl? He sneered, asking if she didn't have her own legs. He said she was just using Ethan to get a passing grade for the hike, and Ethan was happy to show off for a girl. Ethan sighed. It's not that complicated. I saw she needed help, so I helped her. It was her time of the month, she was in pain. It was a miserable situation. Miserable, Caleb repeated flatly. You think everyone is miserable, don't you? That's why you're so good to everyone. I'm not good to everyone. You've always been good to me, Caleb said, his voice taking on a strange, thoughtful tone. Unbelievably good. Is that because you pity me, too? Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Caleb let out a warped, humorless laugh. You know, you're so good. You've always been so good. He moved closer, his arms encircling Ethan. The insoles you cut for me are so warm. My feet don't hurt at all. Ethan instinctively tried to pull away, but Caleb's grip was terrifyingly strong, reminiscent of that day in the summer. Don't do this. Caleb ignored him. You say you don't like me, but you're still so good to me. Isn't that a contradiction? Ethan avoided his gaze, murmuring that he was supposed to be good to him. Caleb's laugh was cold. Since when is anything in this world supposed to be anything? The question they had so carefully avoided was back on the table. Ethan took a deep breath. Caleb, listen to me. Eat, Caleb said, suddenly releasing him. Caleb, I need to talk to you. Eat first. No, Ethan said stubbornly. He glanced outside the tent. The only sound was the distant echo of another platoon singing. I looked it up in the library, he began slowly. The book said, same-sex attachment is a normal phase of adolescent development. It's not the same as being gay. So Caleb's expression went blank for a second. Then he smiled. I don't care about any of that. I just like you. He looked directly into Ethan's eyes. Don't try to label me with some term you read in a book. I like you. I know it and you know it. A wave of dizziness washed over Ethan. He pressed a hand to his chest, the emotional turmoil making it hard to breathe. Caleb's expression softened into one of pain. Can't you just like me back? Not a lot. Just a little. But my like isn't the kind of like you want, Ethan whispered, his nose stinging. He remembered the mixture of relief and sadness he'd felt when he read that passage in the book. So that's what it is. I moved past that phase, but Caleb is still there. Can't we just be friends, like before? His throat was tight. Caleb pulled away, a bitter smile on his face. Sure. And until I get over it. Can you promise to keep being as good to me as you were before? Ethan looked at him, unsure how to answer. Caleb's smile vanished. Forget it. Do whatever you want. He pushed the bowl of stew into Ethan's hands. Eat before it gets cold. I got it specially from the cooks for you. I'm supposed to be good to you, Ethan interrupted, his voice firm. I always will be. Now it was Caleb's turn to be silent. After a long moment, he just said, I know. Eat. Ethan stirred the stew and found large chunks of lamb. He looked up in surprise, asking if everyone got this. Caleb's reply was gruff. No, I traded my Zippo lighter for it. Now eat and stop asking so many questions. Ethan watched him for a moment and felt that the familiar Caleb was back. He took a bite of the tender meat. This is delicious. Did you eat? Caleb's expression softened. He draped the blanket over both of them and ruffled Ethan's short hair. Leaning against him, Ethan felt a sudden urge to cry, but at the same time, the sadness seemed to have lifted completely. The 2 months of orientation passed in a blur. But returning to campus didn't bring the relaxed college life they had imagined. The academic workload at Grandview was immense from day one. Because of the mandatory 2-month orientation, a full year's curriculum was crammed into the remaining time. On top of that, freshmen had mandatory morning runs and evening study halls. The foreign languages building was on the far edge of campus, a long walk from the dorms. Ethan usually got back close to 10 at night, only to wake up at 6 for the morning run. The running path was lined with large, imposing signs. A strong body for a strong nation, a healthy mind for the people. After the run, he'd rush back to shower, grab breakfast, and then head out for a full day of classes, followed by the mandatory study hall back at the foreign languages building. Lately, however, he had an excuse to miss study hall. He was helping Dr. Summers, his translation theory professor, digitize teaching materials. When his advisor had asked if anyone knew how to use a computer, specifically WordPerfect and a keyboard, Ethan had hesitantly raised his hand. Back then, computers were still a novelty. He only knew the basics because of Caleb, whose father, an engineer, had bought an expensive machine for his work. Caleb had taught him how to use simple design programs and how to type. Felt like a lifetime ago. The university's Welcome Week concert had just ended. Caleb had been a star performer, earning admiration from all corners. The foreign languages department was mostly female, and Ethan found himself fielding endless questions about him. It wasn't just his musical talent. During a dull moment at orientation camp, Caleb had apparently solved a complex physics problem in a brilliant, unconventional way that had left many of his peers in awe. Caleb was always exceptional. Ethan hoped that if he focused on his studies and made more friends, he would eventually move on from his fixation on him. Perhaps he would meet a girl he could actually like. The thought, for some reason, left Ethan with a profound sense of loneliness. Caleb should like a girl. But the book had also said that homosexuality meant being attracted exclusively to the same sex, classifying it as a mental disorder. Same-sex attachment in adolescence was normal, but in adulthood it was a sickness. It made no sense to Ethan. Caleb was just Caleb. Whatever he was or whatever he became, he was still just Caleb. He just couldn't understand why thinking of him now filled him with such a panicked sadness. He imagined Caleb walking with some faceless girl. The image didn't bring relief, only a sharp pang of isolation. He finished typing up the documents on the shared computer in the language lab. Glancing at the clock, he saw it was nearly 10. He saved his work onto a floppy disk, shut down the computer, and turned off the lights. The building was mostly dark. As he headed downstairs, he was stopped by the sound of a piano, a fluid, beautiful melody. A moment later, it was replaced by a clumsy, one-fingered tune, punctuated by low murmurs. The door to the choir practice room was ajar. Peeking inside, Ethan saw Caleb sitting on the piano bench next to a young man with styled, side-parted hair. The young man was awkwardly tapping at the keys. There were other people in the room, but the sight of the two of them, shoulder to shoulder, stirred an uncomfortable feeling in Ethan's stomach. Caleb's voice was polite but distant. "If you really want to learn, you should find a teacher over at the State University's music department." He stood up, gathering his sheet music. "I should get going." The other man quickly stood up as well. "So soon? Do you need help with anything?" A girl nearby chimed in, saying that as upperclassmen, they were all there to help the freshmen adjust. Caleb offered a practiced, impersonal smile. I'll be on time for our next rehearsal. See you then. He walked out and came face to face with Ethan, who hadn't managed to step away in time. A slow smile spread across Caleb's face. Ethan looked down and started walking, Caleb falling into step beside him. "What are you doing here?" Caleb asked casually. Ethan explained he was dropping off the disc for Dr. Summers. Caleb offered to walk with him. Ethan demurred, suggesting Caleb must be tired after his long rehearsal and that his engineering classes were notoriously difficult. "Who told you that?" Caleb's voice cooled. "Chloe?" Ethan sighed. "I just ran into her on the path." Caleb let out a short, cynical laugh. "This campus is huge. The men's and women's dorms are miles apart. You're not even in the same college. Don't you think it's strange you run into her every day?" Ethan stopped. "How do you know we see each other every day?" Caleb didn't answer. A slow realization dawned on Ethan. "I see you every day too." "Yeah," Caleb said, glancing at him. "You do." This time it was Ethan who was left speechless. After dropping off the disc, he came out to find the path deserted. Caleb was leaning against a birch tree, the tip of a cigarette glowing in the dark. The dim lamplight stretched his tall frame into a strange, elongated shadow. As he saw Ethan approach, he dropped his hand and turned. "All set?" Ethan didn't answer his question. "When did you start smoking?" "Summer after freshman year of high school," Caleb said flatly. "When I went back home for the funeral." "I never knew," Ethan murmured, staring at the faint orange light. "I don't smoke often. And never in front of you." "Why?" Caleb looked up. "Isn't your reaction right now the answer?" Ethan fell silent, a lump forming in his throat. "What about now?" "Now it doesn't matter," Caleb said with a faint smile. "You know everything anyway." He seemed to want to change the subject, asking if Ethan had joined any campus activities. When Ethan said no, Caleb noted that he seemed to be quite busy himself. He explained that he had listed piano as a skill during orientation, and a professor from the arts committee had sought him out. He couldn't refuse. Now he was being pulled into one event after another. Ethan tried to offer some encouragement, suggesting that it was a good way to meet new people. Caleb shot him a look. "Hoping I'll get distracted?" "Here we go again," Ethan sighed, but decided not to back down. "Yes and no. I just think you're too isolated. You were popular in high school, but relationships are a two-way street." "I know what you mean," Caleb interrupted. "You think I'm not friendly enough, that I don't try hard enough. You're wrong. They don't know me. They see what they can get from me, my family's connections, my grades, my skills. It's a transactional relationship. Why should I invest any more than that?" Ethan was taken aback. "It's not that cynical. You're too naive," Caleb said with a soft laugh. "You always think the best of people, including me." "You are a good person," Ethan insisted. "And what good does that do?" Caleb's voice was flat. "The one thing I want, you won't give me." A tightness gripped Ethan's chest. He wanted to say it wasn't that he wouldn't, it was that he couldn't. But the words stuck in his throat. Caleb watched him for a moment. Then his expression shifted. "Come with me to buy a pack of cigarettes, and I'll stop being mad at you." He said he needed to buy cigarettes, but he led Ethan further and further from campus, down unfamiliar streets. By the time Ethan realized something was wrong, they had slipped out a small, unguarded gate at the back of the university. Not far from the campus lay a set of train tracks. A long coal train rumbled past, and they stood in silence, waiting for the crossing gate to lift. Ethan knew that by the time they bought the cigarettes and walked back, the dorms would be locked for the night. He sighed internally. As they crossed the tracks, they found a small convenience store, its lights still on. Caleb asked the owner for Dunhills. The owner shook his head, offering Camels or Marlboros instead. Caleb turned and walked out. After visiting 3 more stores with no luck, the last owner pulled down his security gate for the night. It was only then that Caleb seemed to remember the time. It's almost 11. Ethan looked at him, exasperated. I know. The dorms are definitely closed. They stood facing each other. Caleb was the first to look away, a small laugh escaping his lips. You knew all along. Why didn't you say anything? Ethan wasn't angry, just resigned. You said if I came with you, you wouldn't be mad anymore. Caleb just shook his head. They wandered aimlessly down the main road until the scenery became completely unfamiliar. The streets were empty. Go home? Caleb asked, half joking. Ethan looked at him. Do you want to? Caleb let out a self-deprecating laugh and said nothing. The silence stretched between them. A stubborn streak rose in Ethan. He could walk all night if he had to, but his legs soon began to ache, and he slowed to a stop. The street was dark, flanked by dense woods. They were well and truly lost. Where are we? He asked, a note of anxiety in his voice. Caleb watched him with an unreadable expression. How should I know? I was following you. His voice dropped to a low murmur. Anywhere is fine with me. Ethan quickly looked away, scanning their surroundings. In the distance, he saw the faint, pointed silhouette of a steeple. A church. They had somehow walked from the university all the way to the old cathedral district. This wasn't a wooded road. It was an unfenced park. He suddenly recognized it. He'd stumbled into this park once in high school. He hadn't realized it in the dark. If they cut through the park, they would reach the downtown riverfront. He turned to Caleb, but Caleb was looking away. Ethan sighed softly. Let's rest for a bit. I'm tired. The old stone gazebo was still there. They sat on the cold marble bench. Were you trying to trick me into getting a hotel room with you? Ethan asked, his mind feeling slow and fuzzy from the cold. Caleb didn't confirm or deny it, his pale eyes seeming to glow in the dark. I don't know. Are you cold? A little, Ethan admitted. Caleb shifted closer, putting an arm around him. Ethan stiffened, pulling away slightly. A look of clear disappointment crossed Caleb's face. He slowly withdrew his arm and lit a cigarette. The tiny flame seemed to offer a sliver of warmth. The smoke was light, dissipating almost instantly, leaving behind a faint, familiar scent. It wasn't the harsh smell Ethan associated with cigarettes. It was pleasant, almost like incense. He realized it was the smell of his grandmother's house, a mix of sandalwood and the faint sweetness of the fruit offerings on the family altar. Caleb stared at the dark steeple. Remember when we were kids? We climbed that bell tower. Yeah, Ethan said, a wave of nostalgia washing over him. And you broke one of the stained glass windows. Caleb chuckled. You remember that? He turned, his eyes intense, and reached out to brush something from Ethan's hair. Ethan flinched again. Caleb's hand paused, then simply plucked a fallen leaf from his shoulder. Look at you so scared. Ethan avoided his eyes. Hey, look, fireflies, Caleb snorted. There are no fireflies here. He followed Ethan's gaze. That's just someone else smoking. He suddenly sat up straighter. Someone's coming this way. A skinny figure emerged from the shadows. Caleb stood up, partially shielding Ethan. The man held up his hands. Hey, easy there. Just looking for a light. Caleb studied him for a moment before tossing him his Zippo. The man fumbled to catch it, lit his own cigarette, and rubbed his hands together. Damn, it's cold. What are you two doing out here in the dark? Same as you, I guess, Caleb replied evenly. The man smiled, a slick, practiced expression. Nowhere else to go, right? He sized them up. Mind if I sit for a bit? He settled on the bench a short distance away. First time here? When Caleb didn't answer, he continued, you must be. In our circle, we gotta look out for each other. You two, together? Ethan suddenly understood. He remembered fragments of old rumors. Is this a meeting spot? The man's smile widened. Yeah. To chat, find company. Ethan mused aloud that it seemed a lot less crowded than it used to be. He felt Caleb's sharp gaze on him. The man looked surprised. You've been here before? I don't remember you. His eyes lingered on Ethan. No offense, but a boy as pretty as you'd be hard to forget. Ethan shook his head, explaining that he had gotten lost here once, long before he knew what kind of place it was. He felt Caleb poke him in the back, and he fell silent. The man, who introduced himself as Hank, lamented that the place had gotten rough lately. Thefts, muggings. He mentioned the police had recently swept through, scaring everyone off. When Caleb asked if there were other places, Hank's eyes lit up. He offered to take them to a better spot, a place that was warm. Caleb hesitated, then asked cautiously about a well-known bathhouse nearby. Hank's grin was immediate and conspiratorial. Now that's a good place. He stood up. I was just heading over. Caleb glanced at Ethan, who was still confused, then stood as well. Is it still open this late? This is when it gets busy, Hank chuckled. Ethan felt a growing unease. A bathhouse? Something was wrong. On the way, he tugged on Caleb's sleeve, whispering that they should just take a look and then leave. He was hungry. Caleb didn't respond, his eyes fixed on Hank's back. The bathhouse was tucked away in a narrow alley behind the main commercial street. A single, dimly lit sign glowed above a door leading to a basement. Men came and went, their heads bowed. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of beer and chlorine. A few men lounging in the lobby looked up as they entered, their gazes invasive and predatory. Ethan instinctively moved closer to Caleb, who squeezed his fingers reassuringly. A heavy-set man at the counter greeted Hank. Then his eyes fell on Ethan and Caleb. Well, he drawled. Bringing in some fresh meat? Ignoring the man and Hank's increasingly uncomfortable expression, Caleb walked to the counter, his voice cold. 2 tickets. He grabbed Ethan's wrist and pulled him through a curtained doorway. Let's go, Ethan pleaded, his voice trembling. I don't want to be here. We're not here to bathe, Caleb said, his own voice tight with tension. You said I was gay. Let's see what gay people are really like. The area behind the curtain was dimly lit. In the locker room, 2 men were kissing in a corner. Caleb pulled Ethan through another doorway, and a blast of hot, humid air hit them. The sounds of running water mixed with moans. Everywhere Ethan looked, he saw bodies tangled together. No one seemed to be actually washing. Caleb was watching Ethan's face, his expression intense. A wave of nausea rose in Ethan's throat. He violently ripped his hand from Caleb's grasp and fled. He ran through room after interconnected room, each one filled with the same writhing scene. He kept his head down, trying to navigate the maze, when someone blocked his path. A hand stroked his cheek. New here? You're beautiful. Let Big Brother take care of you. Ethan shoved the hand away. The man's demeanor changed instantly, and he slammed Ethan against the wall. Playing hard to get? How much? As Ethan struggled, the man's face twisted with rage. Don't be. A sharp cry cut him off. The man stumbled back, clutching his hand. Who the hell? Caleb stood there, having shattered a beer bottle on the floor. He lunged, his fist raised, but before he could land a blow, Ethan wrapped his arms around him from behind, holding him back with all his might. The commotion drew others. The man on the floor scrambled up, but before he could charge, Caleb broke free, grabbed Ethan's hand, and they ran. They burst out of the bathhouse and into the cold night air. Ethan bent over, vomiting violently, tears streaming down his face. Caleb is an asshole, he thought, choking back sobs. A complete and utter asshole. A hand tentatively touched his back. Caleb's voice was laced with a rare panic. Ethan? When he was finished, Ethan straightened up and wiped his mouth on his sleeve. Why would you do that to me? He demanded, his vision blurry. Caleb was silent for a moment. I wanted you to know. Know what? If you don't like me, Caleb said, his voice quiet but intense. That's the world I have to face. Can you live with that? The words were like a knife in his chest. Can't, Ethan whispered. You know I can't. Then, Caleb began stepping closer. But what does that have to do with you being an asshole? Ethan interrupted. The words seemed to drain the last of his strength. The alley fell silent. After a long time, Caleb spoke, his voice barely audible. That's just what I am. He let out a low, bitter laugh. Now you know. He slid down the wall to sit on the damp pavement, his head in his hands. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to become that. Ethan's anger dissolved into a deep, aching sadness. You have a choice, he said, his own voice thick with emotion. You know you do. How to live, who to be. Caleb just covered his face. But when he lowered his hands, his expression was calm again, a fragile smile playing on his lips. I think I finally understand why I like you so much. He was so proud, so meticulous. Yet here he was, sitting on a filthy alley floor, looking utterly broken. A wave of regret washed over Ethan. He wasn't an asshole. He was just lost. As lost as Ethan was. He reached out a hand. The ground is cold. Caleb looked up, and the vulnerability in his eyes vanished. He ignored Ethan's hand and stood up on his own. He then gently brushed his fingers over the spot on Ethan's cheek where the other man had touched him. A hot blush spread across Ethan's face. He quickly turned away. I'm fine. Just then, he saw a familiar figure at the mouth of the alley. It was Marcus, an old acquaintance, staring at them with wide eyes. Caleb's hand dropped. What are you guys doing here in the middle of the night? Marcus asked, his gaze flickering to the neon sign of the bathhouse. He quickly recovered. Hey, long time no see. We were just talking about you down at the club. Caleb's voice was flat, but held an undeniable command. Can we crash at your place for the night? Marcus grumbled that it was already the middle of the night, but then his eyes landed on Ethan's pale, shaken face, and his tone softened. Well, what are you waiting for? Come on. On the walk over, Caleb chatted with Marcus as if nothing had happened. Marcus's club was closed for renovations after a recent brawl. Inside, Marcus started looking for a spare cot, but Caleb calmly stated that one bed was fine. He would take the couch. He didn't want to risk sleepwalking. The meaning was clear. Marcus told Ethan to take the room upstairs. As Ethan headed up, he glanced back. Caleb was sitting on the couch, lighting another cigarette. The room upstairs was unchanged from the last time he'd seen it years ago. Lying on the old cot, memories he thought were long buried began to surface. He remembered Caleb holding him in this very room, so full of fear and sorrow. What had Ethan said then? What had he done? He couldn't remember. He could only see Caleb's desperate, pleading face. Was that when Caleb had realized? What had he been thinking? Guilt coiled in his stomach. He shouldn't have called Caleb an asshole. He had to apologize. He crept downstairs. The light was still on. Marcus's voice drifted up. "Wasn't this the same damn stunt you pulled last time?" Caleb was silent. "Jesus, I get it now," Marcus said, his voice a mixture of annoyance and dawning comprehension. "You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? You can only get away with this shit because you know he cares about you. One day you're gonna push him too far, and there's no coming back from that. You're spoiled, man. That's your problem." After a moment, Caleb asked, "Does it bother you?" "Nah," Marcus said, his voice lowering. "I grew up on the streets. I've seen everything. But this neighborhood, it's not safe. You know guys get drugged in clubs, right? Happens to guys too. You're both young, good-looking. You need to be careful. Just say what you want to say," Caleb said coolly. "I'm just saying, be grateful for what you have. There are people out there with real problems. Your suffering ain't shit. Be grateful." "How's your little sister?" Caleb asked suddenly. "Married?" Marcus grumbled. "Ungrateful brat." Ethan heard footsteps and scurried back upstairs. He lay in bed, his mind racing. He still hadn't apologized. The door creaked open softly. He held his breath, pretending to be asleep. The scent of sandalwood and tobacco filled the small room, coming closer. He waited for it to retreat, but it lingered. When he finally drifted into a light, troubled sleep, the scent was gone. He woke with a start. The room was dark and empty. Downstairs, the clock read 4 a.m. Caleb was asleep on the couch, curled into a tight ball, his brow furrowed even in sleep. Ethan went back upstairs, grabbed the blanket, and gently draped it over him. Caleb stirred but didn't wake. Ethan crouched by the couch, just watching him. The fear, anger, and guilt from the night had faded, replaced by a strange, tender affection. He reached out and gently smoothed Caleb's hair. It was cool and soft. He wondered if someone else would touch Caleb's hair like this one day. The thought sent a jolt of panic through him, and he quickly pulled his hand back. He went back upstairs and fell asleep. When he woke again, it was bright daylight, and the blanket was tucked neatly around him. He ran downstairs. Caleb was sitting on the couch, folding a newspaper. "You're up," he said calmly. "Caleb," Ethan began. Caleb just smiled as if nothing had happened. "Let's go get some breakfast." Outside, the city was bustling. In the daylight, the gritty alleyways of the night before seemed ordinary. Caleb took him to a diner for steak and eggs, even pouring ketchup onto Ethan's plate for him. The guilt returned with a vengeance. "Caleb, eat up," Caleb said, sliding half of his steak onto Ethan's plate. "It'll get cold." After breakfast, they passed a specialty tobacco shop. Caleb walked right past it. Ethan stopped him. "Don't you need to buy cigarettes?" A flicker of something, sadness, crossed Caleb's face. "Right." Ethan went inside and asked the owner for Dunhills. The man nodded, pulling 2 packs from a locked case. Caleb paid in silence. As they stepped back onto the street, he finally stopped. "I got my cigarettes." The autumn air was crisp. Ethan looked into Caleb's pale eyes. "I'm sorry about yesterday." Caleb watched him, the shadow in his eyes slowly lifting. "What are you sorry for?" "I shouldn't have said that to you," Ethan said, looking down. "I thought about it all night. It wasn't your fault." Caleb smiled. "I don't mind." He ruffled Ethan's hair, then leaned in close, his lips brushing against Ethan's ear. "But if you wanted to make it up to me, I wouldn't object." Before Ethan could process the words, Caleb wrapped him in a brief, tight hug. It was over in a second, but it was long enough to make Ethan's heart stop. Caleb pulled back, a playful glint in his eye. There. Compensation received. Passers-by gave them a curious glance, but most didn't seem to notice. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. Caleb, shouldn't we head back to campus? Caleb's smile was lazy. It's Saturday. But we have homework. I don't want to go back. We have to. Yeah, Caleb sighed, a childish pout returning to his face. We always have to. For a long time after that night, Caleb seemed to put aside the unresolvable issues between them and threw himself into his studies. His engineering coursework was brutal. After the initial flurry of extracurriculars, he no longer had an excuse to miss the mandatory evening study halls, which forced him to schedule his lab work on the weekends. Despite this, Ethan still saw him at least twice a week. On Saturday and Sunday evenings, they would both end up at the library. Caleb would arrive, sometimes with classmates but usually alone, and find a table not too far from Ethan's. They would sit in the quiet hall, separated by a comfortable distance, each absorbed in their own work. It became an unspoken routine. Ethan found himself unconsciously looking for Caleb's familiar figure, a habit that filled him with a confusing mix of shyness and security. It was almost as if the painful things had never happened, and they were still just the closest of friends. The winter sun slanted through the tall library windows. Ethan was memorizing vocabulary when his ceramic mug was lifted from the table. He looked up to see Caleb pouring steaming liquid from a thermos into it. Without a word, Caleb set the mug down, sat opposite him, and opened a textbook. The library was cold and mostly empty. Ethan picked up the warm mug. The sweet scent of honey, lemon, and ginger rose to meet him. "What are you doing here so early?" he whispered. "Lab equipment is being serviced," Caleb replied without looking up. Ethan took a sip. The warmth spread through him instantly. Caleb didn't like sweets, but he had a winter habit of making these spiced honey infusions, a recipe he'd learned from his grandmother. The drink was comforting. Caleb looked up, a corner of his mouth twitching. "Not worried I poisoned it?" Ethan played along. "I guess not. How long do I have left?" "Just kidding. Drink it," Caleb said, a real smile finally breaking through. He had taken to teasing Ethan like this lately, small verbal jabs and casual touches that Ethan had slowly, imperceptibly, grown accustomed to. The midday bells chimed. Ethan began to pack his bag. "I have to go." Caleb frowned. "You're not staying this afternoon?" "I have to do something for a professor," Ethan explained, seeing the disappointment on Caleb's face. He hesitated. "Are you busy this afternoon?" "I told you the lab is closed," Caleb said coolly. "Do you want to watch a movie?" Ethan asked tentatively. He wasn't talking about going to a theater. Dr. Summers had tasked him with selecting a film for their Friday class screening. He picked up a box of VHS tapes from the campus media store, and he and Caleb went to a small, empty conference room in the foreign languages building to preview them. Many of the tapes were poor quality. The ones Dr. Summers had recommended were either too blurry or had no sound. "Sorry," Ethan said, disappointed. "I was hoping we could watch something interesting." Caleb, who had gone to the cafeteria to get them lunch, pointed with his fork. "That last one was interesting. The haunted hotel, the creepy twins. Too bad there was no sound." "That was a horror movie," Ethan shivered. "It was terrifying." He found another tape with an intriguing cover, an acclaimed black and white film. It was a wartime romance about a man who sacrifices himself so the woman he loves can escape with her husband. By the end, Ethan's eyes were stinging with unshed tears. He turned to find Caleb looking thoroughly unimpressed. "That was worse than the horror movie," Caleb declared. "I didn't like it." "It was a beautiful story," Ethan argued. The main character was miserable, but he found peace. That's why it's a story, Caleb said dismissively. It's fake. Ethan searched for another tape. The new one seemed to be about a young man's friendships at university. As he watched, a familiar sense of unease began to grow. When the main character tenderly stroked his friend's hair, Ethan's heart started to pound. He glanced at Caleb and found him staring intently, not at the screen, but at him. A hot blush flooded Ethan's face as he remembered his own secret gesture on the couch at Marcus's club. The door to the conference room suddenly flew open. A middle-aged professor stood there, scowling. "What are you two doing in here?" Ethan explained that Dr. Summers had given him the key. The professor strode in, his eyes falling on the box of the movie they were watching. His face darkened. "Who gave you permission to watch this filth?" he snapped. Ethan was stunned. It was on Dr. Summers' list. "It's an award-winning film. It's poison," the professor roared. "I'll pretend I didn't see this today, but if it happens again, you'll both be facing disciplinary action." He slammed the door and locked it from the outside, muttering about the declining morals of the university. Ethan was worried. Will Dr. Summers get in trouble? Caleb was examining the poisonous VHS tape. Probably not. He's just some blowhard taking his frustrations out on students. He looked at the empty hallway. He's gone. Want to go back and finish it? We probably shouldn't, Ethan said cautiously. I'll just pick the romance. That one was fine. They walked out into the cold afternoon. The campus was quiet, the snowy paths packed down into slick ice. Aren't you curious? Caleb asked. What kind of movie would make him that angry? Ethan's ears burned. He had a pretty good idea. It was just a movie, he said evasively. The one you picked was terrible, Caleb stated flatly. I hated it. The story was beautiful, Ethan insisted, still thinking of the noble sacrifice. In real life, he added softly, not all feelings get a perfect ending. Caleb stopped walking. If it were you, could you find peace? I don't know, Ethan answered honestly. Yeah, you don't know, Caleb murmured, stepping closer. But I know I couldn't. He was so close now, and Ethan found himself frozen, unable to move, his heart hammering against his ribs. Caleb reached up, gently brushing a stray curl from Ethan's forehead, his voice a low whisper. Why are you so quiet? The tension snapped. I have to get back to the library, Ethan stammered, pulling away. Caleb wouldn't let him go. You didn't answer my question. Do you hate it when I touch you? It's not about hating it. It's not right, Ethan struggled to explain. What's not right about it? We were just kids then. We didn't know. Didn't know? Caleb repeated, his voice dangerously soft. Are you sure you didn't know anything? Then why are you blushing? Why are you so flustered? You're doing it again, Ethan said, his voice rising in panic. I can't talk to you when you're like this. He turned to leave, but Caleb started to reach for him. At that moment, an elderly man with white hair rounded the corner, looking at them with surprise. Professor Cheen, Caleb said, his demeanor instantly shifting to one of polite deference. The professor smiled. I was just looking for you, Caleb. I read your lab report. Your methodology was quite innovative. Did you develop that yourself? Caleb glanced at Ethan, who seized the opportunity. I have to go. He fled, not daring to look back. Caleb didn't return to the library that day. Ethan's mind was a chaotic mess of unfinished movies and Caleb's pale, intense eyes. He failed a quiz for the first time ever the following Monday. The pressure of final exams mounted, and Ethan tried to force himself to focus. But the thoughts persisted. I don't desire him, he told himself. that, according to the books, meant he wasn't gay. "But you have feelings for him," a small voice countered. "It's just friendship," he argued back. But he couldn't explain why he had started avoiding his best friend. Caleb seemed to sense his turmoil. The next weekend at the library, he chose a table on the opposite side of the vast reading room, acting as if he didn't even see Ethan. The distance, paradoxically, made Ethan's heart ache even more. They fell into a new, silent routine of mutual avoidance. Several times, Ethan saw Caleb smoking in the small garden behind the library and fought the urge to go to him. But whenever Caleb caught his eye, he would stub out his cigarette and walk away. Yet, when Ethan walked back to his dorm after the library closed, he could always sense Caleb following at a distance. As exams drew closer, there was no time for anything but studying. The library was packed from dawn till dusk. One afternoon, Ethan saw Caleb slumped over a table, asleep, with dark circles under his eyes. He hesitated for a moment, then walked over and poured the hot tea from his own thermos into Caleb's empty one. No one noticed. He hurried back to his seat, his heart pounding. The last month of the semester was a frantic blur of all-night study sessions in overcrowded lecture halls. One night, a week before his toughest exams, Caleb appeared out of nowhere in the freezing cold study hall and dropped 2 notebooks on his desk. Before Ethan could recover from his shock, Caleb was gone. He chased after him, but the hallways were empty, only snow swirling under the lamps outside. The notebooks were filled with Caleb's neat, precise handwriting, outlining all the key concepts, theorems, and practice problems for Ethan's 2 most difficult science courses. He had even noted which problems had appeared on previous year's exams. Standing in the empty lobby, clutching the notebooks, Ethan felt a sudden, sharp sting behind his eyes. All the confusion and turmoil vanished, replaced by a single, aching thought. Caleb looked so thin. He passed his exams. The science courses he had dreaded turned out to be his best subjects. His roommates, whose homes were out of state, left the day the last exam ended. Ethan, with nowhere to rush off to, felt a strange sense of emptiness. His first thought was of a long, deep sleep. His second was of Caleb. He had to find him, thank him, and ask when they could go home together. He realized with a jolt that he hadn't actually seen Caleb in nearly 2 weeks. Surely Caleb wouldn't still be giving him the silent treatment now. As he was walking across the quad, lost in thought, he bumped squarely into someone. He apologized profusely and looked up. "Chloe?" She smiled. "Walking with your eyes closed again?" He helped her pick up a scattered pile of course packets. "Finals brain," he said sheepishly. "Are you done?" "Not yet. One more to go." They walked together toward the women's dorms. "Do you know when Caleb finishes?" he asked. "I think in a day or 2, haven't you asked him?" "I feel like I haven't seen him in forever," Ethan admitted, thinking of the friend who hadn't spoken a single word to him for over a month.